Welcome back to the table and our second episode of Crowd Control.
Yes.
We're going to see if we can keep these going as long as we can. As long as there's stuff to talk about.
That's true. There should always be stuff to talk about in the world of crowdfunding. There are always crowdfunding campaigns launching, and we're only talking about a couple. So even last week when we did this, there were a couple games that were running or about to run that we didn't get to talk about. So we'll get the chance on a weekly basis, or maybe bi-weekly, to talk about these games.
It's funny you should say there's always something launching, because this week is pretty light.
That's true. This week is pretty light as far as what's launching this week. So don't expect a lot of huge new launches like we had last week.
No.
Spoiler alert, though, next week there are some gigantic
Yes.
games launching. But there are several games that are still running right now that are really picking up speed and have really gathered our attention. So let's just go ahead and jump into. These are the games that we think are really cool that are on crowdfunding right now. The first is called Botany. This is a Victorian flower hunting game.
I know nothing about this
Which sounds kind of wild, but it is incredibly thematic. I guess this is something that was very popular during the Victorian era, was the people that would go across the world trying to find these very rare flowers and bring them back to England. And so that's kind of what you're doing. And the game is using like historical Victorian illustrations and photographs. It's all very well produced. It's got a great production value, great look to it. But the theme of the game is pretty cool because you're going out and you're collecting these plants and you're getting like the presses, you're getting the seeds, whatever. And you have to bring it all back to your estate. And then your estate itself, as you go out, you're going to be kind of bringing everything you get back, making some money, using that money to improve your estate, using that money to improve your character, and then going back out on another expedition, trying to go farther and farther and get more and more flowers to kind of bring back to your estate. It's a very cool theme.
That's a very unique theme. It's very interesting. It sounds kind of hoity-toity, like going out and collecting flowers and then making money off of it?
Yeah, well, and there was the Queen's Prize. In the game, the Queen wants is sponsoring a reward for people to go out and find these flowers. And I guess they said that a lot of these things and a lot of the events in the event deck are sponsored by real historical events that happened to...
Sponsored or inspired?
Or inspired by
or
real,
sponsored, one
real
of the two.
Historical events that happened to actual Victorian flower hunters. And of course, that's a widely popular time period, and they managed to encapsulate a lot of the feel of that with the artwork and the components. And there's just a ton of expansions coming out for it. It's already at over 2,000 backers, like $150,000 right now, which is pretty great for a game about finding flowers. That's really great.
Yeah, the game I want to talk about is not about collecting and hunting. It's about delivering. It's called Milkman, and this one is from a friend of the channel, Chris Kirkman and Dice Hate Me Games. And this is sort of set in, old school Americana, the time when milk was delivered to doorsteps.
Sure.
You still have milk delivered to
No,
doorsteps?
but you can. We have a place that does it.
That does it, but not too many. But this Milkman game is kind of a dice. You're using dice to take a number of actions on your turn. You have a little farm with cows. You're going to be milking those cows to collect milk. Then you're going to be processing that milk into different types of milk, like changing it to whole milk, changing it to maybe 2%. I don't know all the types, maybe chocolate milk even. Then you've got a truck at the bottom of your board, and you're going to be loading that truck up and then delivering to homes. And you even have to actually collect those routes. Like there's an action where you can sort of add homes to your route.
It's competitive. You got to get to all those houses.
Exactly. I don't know if the real Milkman scene was that competitive back in the day.
I bet it was.
Everyone angling for, you're going to get my route? No. But yeah, it's just this pleasant, and it's a beautiful, Kwanchai Moria did at least the cover art illustration, which is a really cool box. It's very minimalistic in terms of it's just art, and Milkman's on the side of the truck, so you can almost kind of miss the name of the game, but it's right there. Anyway, it's a nice little game. It's on. In fact, it's ending pretty soon.
It is ending. It's ending this week. So if you're watching this as it drops, check it out because it's only got a few more days after this.
Yeah, go check it out. It's a nice little game. You're using the dice, like I said, to take all sorts of actions. Interesting twist on the dice use is that you're rolling dice. Some of them are white, some of them are black. The white ones, they're locked. Like you don't get to re-roll the white ones. But their re-roll mechanism is that the two black die, you can re-roll a couple of times. So I like that you can kind of, it forces a little bit of chance. Now, before you think, oh, it's just going to be a luck fest, there's a lot of ways to mitigate. You collect money from doing all the things that you're doing, and you can spend money to re-roll dice. You can spend larger amounts of money to literally set dice
Oh,
on
that's good.
actions.
That's always
And
good
you
to
can
have.
use any 2 dice with the same icon to do any other action. So there's a lot of mitigation with the dice, but I thought it was a very interesting theme.
Yeah,
Maybe
it is.
Is it as interesting as
I don't know if it's as
the
interesting
flower
as that
hunting?
one. But I have another one, actually. The next one I want to talk about is a really great theme, too. This is called Threads of Fate. Now, this is not technically a board game. This is a...
But you might like it.
But you'll probably like it. This is a puzzle in a box kind of escape room, kind of a narrative-driven adventure that's revolves around all of these different puzzles. It's one of those games when you open it up, you just get a treasure trove
Of stuff.
There's, clues, and there's snippets of paper and maps and tons of physical components. In fact, you'll see it. I mean, you'll be seeing it on screen right now, and you're getting all this stuff for $86, which is actually a really good deal for the amount of content you're getting in this game.
And also it's well produced too.
Incredibly.
At least the pictures that we saw, like there's a wooden box, and it didn't look like it was kind of like that thin balsa wood type material. It looked like a really solidly made wooden box. All of the different little items looked very well produced. Because some of these you get, and
they look chintzy.
They're a little chintzy. They looked mass-produced. All the elements kind of look legit.
Well, this is from Post Curious and Rita Orlov, who's a master puzzle maker, does escape room design, puzzle design, and all that stuff.
Oh.
They did another game, Emerald Flame, a few years ago that was widely popular and very successful. So if you've played through that, I don't know that this is a similar experience, but it does have that same amount of quality, and it's kind of like a Norse tale. And actually, I don't want to mess this up. It was written by Lauren Bella, wrote the story, who also wrote Sandman for Netflix. So that's kind of a cool little thing, cool little Easter egg
That is interesting.
to have in there. So you're going to expect like a really great narrative story that's going to be exposed as you work your way through these puzzles. And again, this is not a game that while it's designed maybe that you can play it solo, you can also have a bunch of people with you. And these experiences are a lot of fun trying to go through them, and bounce ideas off each other and try to find all the clues. It's a good game night, for sure.
And before we get to the last campaign that we wanted to talk about, that at least is running, we have a segment this week, a special segment from our very own Jeremy Howard. We're going to be maybe trying to do a little segment away from the table here like this. This one is called I'll Back That for $1.
Hunters 1492 is on crowdfunding right now. And although I can't back for $1, I am on the fence, and that's why the segment is called I'll Back That for $1. Why am I on the fence? Well, I happen to love the theme where it's going to, fantasy, stealth, grim, and dark. It's going to have some of the systems that are in here. And Hunters 2114 is kind of post-apocalyptic. It's got a dark, gritty theme. You're trying to complete missions. It's got a base that you can add to things, almost like XCOM, and you can add to your characters. I also love that there was weapon customization in this game. It is so slick. That part of the game is so cool. But on the other end, this game is extra brutal, highly luck driven. There are errors all over the cards. I think there's one missing. There's a whole, I mean, when I say a huge presentation, there is a huge presentation on your table. This can only fit on certain tables unless you organize it. It's just a clunky game, but there's a lot of good gameplay in here and a lot of potential. Did they correct it in the first version? Did they collect it in this next one? It's standalone. I'm worried. This thing cost over $100. What do you say? Well, until I figure this out and do some more research, I am on the fence. I'm going to back it for $1.
So yeah, that is one way to go about backing things. It's not a way that I've backed things where you just back it for $1, hedging your bets.
People do a lot.
Do you think it's just for a reminder? Like in case you missed the end
and it lets
date?
you get into the pledge manager and things like that too. So that's great.
Yeah, so the next campaign we're going to talk about is Terrorscape. This one is kind of a creepy, scary game. At first glance, it looked like it's kind of, if you're familiar with the game Sabotage mashed up with
like Final Girl.
It was definitely giving me Final Girl
but
vibes.
it's not a solo game. It's actually like a one versus many game where one person does play like a crazy killer and the other players are trying to survive it. But yeah, it looks very dark. Obviously, it's very much a horror game.
Well, and we can't bury the headline. It got some table presence.
Oh, for sure.
There's a giant like mansion that sits between the one and the many, and it also doubles as like a dice tower.
Yeah,
I think you're dropping dice into the house and then they come out. But everyone has a map on either side of the same house, and like we said, there are multiple different monsters that the one can play.
Yeah, there's multiple monsters and multiple settings, multiple maps you can play on, and then of course multiple investigators that the players can play as well. So that's why I say it does kind of give me Final Girl vibes, at least with that mix and match kind of mentality.
Yeah, and maybe it was just the miniatures. Maybe it was just the creepy miniatures chasing people and trying to kill them that
Right.
gave me the Final Girl vibes. But I feel that too. But it seemed very interesting. Hidden movement, because the killer doesn't know where the people are. The people don't know where the killer are. But the people can do things and interact with the rooms, collecting. It's pretty robust. You can do quite a bit. Collecting items, but you might make sound. And as you make sound, that's going to give some hints to the killer as to where you are. And some of the killers can do things like block off doors so they can trap you in places and then get in after you and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting to have like almost like that double blind system for hidden movement. I don't know if I've seen another one that's that there's that much hidden information, right?
Yeah,
for both sides.
Sabotage is the only one that reminded me
Yeah,
of
and
that.
Sabotage is kind of like that. It's 2v2.
It's 2v2.
And it's a little different. This is, I like that idea of like that horror presence, that creeping, villain that's coming up on you. You never know which room they're going to be in. It's a very cool game. It's been widely successful. It's over $500,000 raised so far.
It doesn't need your help, but if you're interested and you haven't heard about it, go check it out because it's doing just fine.
I'm always looking for new and innovative hidden movement games.
Yeah, me too. Mind management is my go-to, and I think it's still going to reign supreme.
Oh, sure, but this is like the opposite. And this is that super thematic, like very much a simulation style game.
I'm very tempted on this one for sure.
I hope we get
I might
a chance to
back
play it.
just for $1 just to see if I can get in there.
So I do want to talk about one that just ended briefly, and this was a campaign that Awaken Realms launched for their Story Vault dice.
On Gamefound, of course.
They launched this on Gamefound, and this was one that when they were originally talking about that they were going to have dice, it was like, okay, Awaken Realms getting into this dice game. Are people going to be interested in this or not? And it ended up raising so far over $380,000
for dice.
Before we even talk about the late pledge. Yes, for dice, but we said this during our preview, this is Awaken Realms dice.
Yeah.
So you're getting, all of those really nice upgraded components, really nice case to keep them in. I think there's like 21 dice.
They're really cool.
They are really cool.
Like they were bizarre, in fact. In fact, when you look at the images of the dice, you kind of have to wonder, is that going to work? Like some of the dice were so oddly shaped, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, it's never, I assume they've done all of their, obviously.
I'm sure. They're all going to be
their homework, and they're all going to be weighted and perfectly balanced. But they're bizarre looking dice and very thematic to a lot of the things that they, the games they produce.
And this is like the first game in their Storyteller Vault series. Like they're planning on releasing more game components or like RPG components. And I think that they're off to a good start. I mean, I'll admit I was a little nervous. I didn't know if people were going to embrace it.
They did.
But I'm glad to see another company entering into that RPG space of releasing these really nice RPG supplements. So that one did end. It should be going to late pledge soon. I'm sure that they'll have a late pledge window.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of like if you missed Milkman, I bet they'll have a late pledge as well. So that is everything that we wanted to talk about, everything that's running right now.
Except for one thing.
I did want to give one quick shout out. The 2024 Board Game Mosaic calendar is live. I know a lot of our followers have backed that calendar every year over the past few years, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So definitely check out that calendar.
They're beautiful.
They are. It's great artwork. It's great like mosaic for different board game covers and elements like that. So definitely take a look at that one. And that's all I've got today for Crowd Control.
Yeah, that is Crowd Control Episode 2 in the can. If you have any questions about any of the campaigns, let us know. Yeah. We will try our best to answer it. We're not absolute experts on every one of these campaigns, but we'll get down there in the comments and do what we can. Until next time, of course, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.